This conference will now be recorded.
Welcome to the May 16th South Whitehall Township Planning Commission meeting. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic, one nation, indivisible. Mr. Adams, would you like to do the roll call?
Yes. Trevor Dombach.
Here.
Tim Dugan.
Here.
Todd Farringer.
Here.
Brian Height.
Here.
Diane Kelly. Not present. Mark Luth.
Here.
David Wilson.
Here.
6 members present, sufficient for a quorum.
Also, Township staff and consultants here tonight are Greg Adams, Township Planner, Dave Manhart, Director of Community Development, Laura Harrier, Zoning Officer, Jennifer Aldifer, Township Solicitor with Sader Law, Anthony Talarita, Township Engineer with the Pidcock Company. Can you do the meeting rules, Mr. Adams?
Yes. For an orderly meeting wherein all attendees may be able to fully participate, we ask that you adhere to the following rules. In order that both in-person and remote attendees may hear all comments or questions, all in-person attendees were required to use microphones at all times. We request that the remote attendees please mute your microphone or telephone to avoid background noise that may cause interference in the meeting and make it difficult for others to hear. Staff may mute the microphones of remote attendees if needed. Public questions and comments will be taken at periodic intervals through the agenda. We will start with no time limits, but the Planning Commission Chairman may impose a time limitation if there are many questions or if the meeting is running short on time. For in-person attendees, please raise your hand to be recognized, then move to the podium when directed. Turn your podium microphone on and state your name, address, and comment or question. Please turn the podium microphone off when done. For remote attendees, the chat box feature will be active throughout the meeting. When you have a comment or question, please type your full name and address in the chat box. When you are recognized and so directed, please unmute your microphone and state your comment or question. Mute your microphone when done. For those who are accessing the meeting by phone only, staff will periodically ask for caller comments and unmute all callers. Callers must identify their name and address prior to making comment. Your cooperation and adherence to these rules will ensure an orderly and respectful meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. We're on agenda item number 3, approval of minutes. Does anyone have any comments on the April 11 meeting minutes?
The only comment I have is on agenda item 7, the last word should be LVTS and not just LVT.
Does anyone want to?
I'll make a motion to approve
Second.
that correction.
I'll second it.
Those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? I'll abstain. I did not attend the April 11 meeting.
I will abstain as well.
Motion passes. Are there any comments on the May 9th meeting minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve as presented.
I'll second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed.
I'll abstain. I was not in attendance for the May 9th, 2024 meeting.
Motion passes. Great, we're on agenda item number 4, subdivision review. Agenda item A, Ridge Farm Final Plan, Phase 1C. Is anyone in the audience or online?
Jason Engelhardt is available online, but A request was submitted. It's on page 9 of your packet. This is something new that we're trying to implement since the first of the year. I believe this is the second time we've had someone request an extension for the submission deadline. Typically, our deadline would be 4 o'clock the day of the planning commission meeting. In this case, it just so happened we had a special meeting, so this one falls 1 week later. So this is already past the submission deadline. However, I will call it to your attention that this is a 5-week month. So therefore, today is 4 weeks from the next meeting. Typically, prior to this, what we had done is determined with staff and the township engineer if we had the capacity to take submissions after the deadline date based on available manpower and such. But with this new policy we're trying out, we're going to run this by you so that you can make that choice, and certainly then you'll become aware of what's coming in the upcoming month. So I have not talked with the township engineer. I don't know if he has any issues with this. Perhaps you might want to discuss that.
Tony,
No objection. We can review.
great. Does anyone on the planning commission have any thoughts, any concerns? All right, I guess we need to make a motion, or does anyone want to make a motion to allow for the submission?
I'll make a motion to extend the land development submission deadline as per their letter.
I'll second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed. Motion passes. All right.
Thank you.
On. Agenda item 4B, Nestle Purina wastewater treatment upgrades. Greg, would you like to do the staff review?
Yes. This is an application to further develop properties located at 2050 Pope Road and 4535 Huckleberry Road. On 2050 Pope Road, the plan proposes the construction of a 21,921 square foot wastewater treatment building on the current site of waste disposal facility holding basin 1B, as well as ancillary tanks and plumbing on approximately 4 acres of the 114.6 acre tract. The plan proposes that the treated effluent is to be rerouted from its current discharge point into an unnamed tributary of the Jordan Creek. The treated effluent is proposed to be piped north across the remainder of 2050 Pope Road, under Huckleberry Road, and north across 4535 Huckleberry Road to discharge directly into the Jordan Creek. The plan proposes the construction of a gate and a driveway on 4535 Huckleberry Road to support monitoring and property maintenance. The plan also proposes the construction of an 896 square foot maintenance building to the immediate north of the main production factory building. 2050 Pope Road is zoned IC1. 4535 Huckleberry Road is zoned RR2, Rural Residential 2. Nestle Purina Pet Care Company is the owner and applicant. The Planning Commission has reviewed this before at their March 14th, 2021 meeting. That would be March 14th, 2024 meeting. They reviewed and took under advisement this plan, confirmed their support for 10 waiver deferral request recommendations that had been made at their April 15, 2021 meeting, and made recommendations upon 3 additional waiver and deferral requests. Previously, April 15, 2021, the Planning Commission reviewed and recommended for approval this very plan. But in between, there were issues that had come up, and therefore the plan is back. The township at this point.
Hey, Mr. Tellerita, would you like to do your? Oh,
Sorry, I couldn't turn the page.
Okay. I jumped the gun there, Greg.
There's a lot to read.
Yeah, there is a lot to read.
Okay.
Should the Planning Commission determine that the plan is sufficiently clean to recommend preliminary final plan approval to the Board of Commissioners, the department would recommend that the approval be subject to the applicant complying with the following conditions. 1, that the applicant shall execute subdivision improvement, security, maintenance, and indemnification agreements acceptable to the township and its solicitor, that sufficient security in a form acceptable to the township be posted, that such security be available for draws presentations no further than 60 miles from the township office, and evidence of insurance coverage in the amount satisfactory to the township in its sole discretion be provided to the plan being recorded. 2, that the applicant address the satisfaction township engineer the comments of Mr. Anthony Talarita as contained in his review dated May 2nd, 2024. 3, that the applicant address the satisfaction township geotechnical consultant the comments of Mr. Chris Taylor as contained in his review dated April 26th, 2024. 4, the applicant addressed the Satisfaction Community Development Department the comments of Mr. Greg Adams as contained in his review dated May 9, 2024. 5, that the applicant complies with the January 23, 2024 recommendation of the Parks and Rec Board. 6, that the applicant obtains a review from LVPC prior to the plan being presented to the South Whitehall Township Board of Commissioners. 7, the applicant obtains a letter from PADEP and/or LCCD approving the NPDES permit application pursuant to Section 31239E of SALDO and PADEP Chapter 105 permits. 8, that the applicant reconciles all open invoices for township engineering and legal services prior to the plan being recorded. And 9, that the plans would be revised and deemed to be clean prior to them being presented to the Board of Commissioners. The Planning Commission's soft deadline to act on the plan is June 10th. The Board of Commissioners' hard deadline to act on the plan is July 10th, 2024. There you go.
All right. Mr. Talarita.
All right, thank you. So this plan has been in before. The engineering items regarding the plan itself and the improvements to the plan have been managed there. We went through comments, we had calls, and while there's still outside agency permits regarding DEP and the wastewater treatment plan, we feel the stormwater is managed on their site. Our recommendation is based upon the waiver that they're requesting at this time. They have the sloped driveway on the north side of Huckleberry. If the Planning Commission chooses to waive or make action on that waiver, we would recommend approval. If we choose not to grant them that waiver, there would be a redesign necessary, and then we would think it would be best for them to come back with the redesign prior to Planning Commission granting approval.
Thank you.
No problem. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Stephanie Coble from Fitzpatrick, Lenz & Buba. I'm here on behalf of the applicant, Nestle Purina. As Greg summarized, we are here tonight for recommendation for plan approval and one remaining waiver for the construction of a 21,921 square foot wastewater treatment plant, tanks and piping, and a driveway to support monitoring and maintenance. As you may be aware from our last meeting, this whole project originated from a requirement of the Delaware River Basin Commission requiring Nestle to build this new wastewater treatment plant, really in an effort to help create cleaner streams, which of course we support. A few months ago, back in March, we were before you for positive recommendations on waivers and deferrals, with the exception of the driveway slope waiver. You did recommend approval of the waivers and deferrals that we sought. Tonight, we're here for positive recommendation on the waiver related to the driveway slope and a positive recommendation on the plan as a whole. Chris Williams from Barry Isett is here with me tonight. I also would like to introduce to the board Josh Haney, who is our summer intern. He's with me tonight to observe. Josh is a rising 2L at Drexel University Law School, completed his undergrad work at Rutgers, which as a Penn Stater, I will not hold against him. And he's with FLB for the entire summer. Since our last meeting, I'm just going to summarize things and then I'm going to turn it over to Chris for the technical details. But since our last meeting, we have dug into this driveway slope further and have discussed it with your engineer and looked at it internally. For the reasons that I will summarize and that Chris will detail, we feel that this is really a textbook waiver request scenario where strict compliance with the SALDO would actually lead to a less desirable outcome than granting the waiver would. The township SALDO requires that the driveway slope not exceed 10%. We are proposing a slope on a private driveway of 14.7%. Nestle cannot effectively meet the SALDO requirements. It is not a circumstance where we are trying to skirt our obligations under the SALDO. It is really a circumstance where meeting the township requirements would cause great hardship. Just a little bit of background on this driveway. It's a gated driveway. It will have a dedicated turnaround prior to the location of the gate in case a motorist mistakenly turns onto the driveway. It will also be posted as a private driveway and will have guardrails. The driveway will be used for the very limited purpose of maintenance and monitoring activities by Nestle employees and consultants only. Of course, as I'm sure the township is keenly aware, it will also allow access if township officials, DEP officials, or other public government officials would need to come on to inspect. The monitoring and maintenance requirements that we're talking about are actually required by DEP, LCCD, and the township. Our NPDES permit also requires us that we identify and provide access to the stormwater facilities on the site. It's important to know this driveway leads to nothing. It leads to a field with regulated activities in it. It won't be used for an employee access point, for deliveries, for vendors, etc. In fact, we all acknowledge if at some point the site would be developed, which is highly unlikely because it's floodplain. And as we were discussing outside before we came in, this isn't a floodplain where people will come and say, we've never seen it flood once. This is a floodplain that floods a lot. You all are aware of that. But if the site were to be developed and the driveway were to be used for future development, we acknowledge that the requested waiver would not apply to future development. It only applies to this project. From a safety perspective, I would want to point out that the point at which the driveway intersects with Huckleberry Road does meet the township slope requirements and also meets PennDOT's private driveway requirements. There are a few reasons why meeting the SALDO requirements would be extremely difficult for us. To decrease the slope of the driveway would require additional impervious coverage in areas that are already flood prone. It would also require us to put more fill in the floodplain, which would create an increased risk of flooding in that area. We would also need to elongate the driveway. The existing site limits our ability to elongate the driveway. Specifically, the site is constricted by a PPL easement, which we cannot build within the floodplain, and an existing stormwater inlet coming from Huckleberry Road and draining down towards the Jordan, which we would need to relocate if the driveway was moved. The current location of this pipe, we've been told by DEP, is at the preferred location. So they'd really prefer we not move that pipe if we don't need to. But if we change the slope of the driveway, all of those things, would be impacted and would be problematic. For the reasons I just explained, granting this waiver on slope on a limited use, access controlled private driveway makes good sense. I'm now going to have Chris Williams discuss the specifics of that overview because no one wants a lawyer discussing engineering to them. So Chris is going to take it from here, but that is the reason why in this case, this waiver really does make good sense.
Thank you, Steph. Steph stole most of my thunder, so I'll hit a few items in more detail. I'll mention that the existing access is at the west side of the site. So on the top of this drawing, just above the red line, there's an existing gravel driveway that's pretty steep. It's 20% slope. And in order to provide better access to this property, which, like Steph mentioned, is just a road to nowhere, just to get access to the stream, we're proposing only a 12-foot wide paved driveway at the 14.7% slope. So on this exhibit, you see the red line, that's the PPL easement. Avoiding impacts in their easement is imperative. I'll get into that a little bit more later. The green line is the floodplain, and we all know that there's stringent floodplain requirements for good reason. So we really don't want to add any fill into the floodplain. So if we were to lengthen the driveway to make it less steep across that green line, then that would be adding fill into the floodplain. And the blue line is the downstream flow path from the storm sewers in the township right away. So if it ain't broke, don't fix it is kind of the mentality there. So we have this existing discharge. Do we want to, if we were to shift the driveway to the east and impact that discharge, then we'd have to add pipes and extend it further across the new driveway location, do a downstream discharge analysis reviewed by LCCD and DEP with unknown implications to that. So there's a lot of issues there. But of course, avoiding the impact of the floodplain is our #1 priority. If we were to reduce it to a 10% slope, our first option would be to extend it up on the page across that red line into the PPL easement. That would require the grades in the easement to be dropped. Those elevations would have to go down, meaning steeper slopes in the PPL easement or retaining walls, which is a less desirable condition for PPL's access. They're definitely not going to be okay with that. It would also be approximately an additional 1,080 square feet of impervious and 8,000 square feet or so of additional disturbance and tree removal. The other option of shifting the entrance to the south or down on the page to lengthen the driveway and reduce the slopes. As I mentioned, that would impact the downstream area that pipes discharge. It would have a similar impact with over 1,000 square feet of additional impervious being added and about 8,000 square feet of disturbance and tree removal. So in general, increasing the length of the driveway in this area has a negative environmental impact to this steep sloped wooded area. On the next exhibit, if you could flip to that one, this one shows this is a PennDOT exhibit, and it shows the standards for driveway connections to a PennDOT road. PennDOT allows up to an 8% deflection. So that's the difference in slope from the cross slope of the road with the driveway. So they allow that to deflect up to 8%. We're only proposing 3.6%. The third exhibit is an ambulance turning template, which shows an ambulance going down the driveway and turning around at the end of the driveway. So Steph mentioned the turnaround at the beginning of the driveway, which you see on the left side of this exhibit. There's also a turnaround at the end, which an ambulance can safely navigate. And of course, there's no structures proposed with this project, so the likelihood of needing fire trucks down there, I mean, we could, who knows, but it seems unlikely. We have a gate provided 25 feet after the initial turnaround off Huckleberry Road, and the driveway will be marked as private, and they only need passenger vehicles to access the site, so there's no need for large trucks. And being that it's only 12 feet wide, it's not something that's going to invite any kind of large truck traffic. Finally, I'll just mention that I did do a quick review of some other ordinances in the area and noted that City of Allentown, City of Bethlehem, and Salisbury Township allow up to 15% driveways. PennDOT's maximum is also 15%, which is noted. You can't really read it, but it's in the that second easement or second exhibit, 15% max. So I'm just bringing these up to show that a driveway of this slope is not uncommon in this area. So for those reasons, we're asking for a waiver.
Thank you. Does anyone have any thoughts, any comments, any questions?
I think we asked this once before, but what's the frequency that somebody's going to be going down there?
Yeah, it would be, so first of all, it's going to be determined by DEP and DRBC. But our guess is it's anywhere from once a day to once a week, somewhere in there.
And also, sure they're functioning.
Right.
Speaking of weather, is this going to be maintained for winter weather events? It will be plowed
Yep.
just like the rest of your facility?
Yes, certainly will be.
And I would only make a comment about the Allentown and Salisbury and Bethlehem ordinances. They also have South Mountain. So a lot of their territory is contingent on their
Yep.
geographic, but
Right.
I agree. So
Any other questions, comments?
I would just say, I mean, it seems like, well thought out, asking for the waiver, so it all makes sense from an engineering and
Yeah, that
perspective.
was a very nice presentation. One of the key items is I view this as a private driveway. This isn't a public street. It doesn't serve any residents, any businesses. It's rarely going to be used.
I have a follow-up question. You said it was going to be signed as a private driveway. Is it also going to be signed as private property?
Yeah.
I'm just concerned of somebody being lost and they're trying to find a resident and then they end up thinking that's the driveway they're looking for.
Yeah, and keep in mind though as well, that there will be a gate across it. So,
Further in.
yeah, but not all that, how many feet in?
It is into the site. I think having a sign is
Yeah.
not
I mean,
objectionable.
we're happy to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
They
just trying
definitely
to
don't want
avoid
that.
issues, you know.
Right. They definitely don't want that errant driver in there either.
And I would also suggest getting to public safety, actually having an address there. So in case there is an incident, that you know where to respond to.
Is that gate that's 25 feet after the first turnaround, is that a manual or an electronic? You
It's
know?
I believe it's a manual gate. What we've planned so far.
Yeah, because you don't have any need for utilities to the site. It's just a point to check the outlet.
Right. It would probably generally be the same 1 or 2 or 3 people accessing it that'll have a key.
All right, I think it makes sense. Anyone have any other questions? Does anyone want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to.
Oh, sorry, Greg.
I just had one question. The fire marshal wanted to know where not an Knox box, the location of a fire hydrant. The maintenance building is it's not centrally located. So he just wanted to know if it was within 300 feet of a SALDO compliant fire hydrant.
Yep, we can add that fire hydrant to the plan and show the dimension.
So there is one.
There is one, it's around 300 feet. I mean, we'll definitely work it out with did you say it was the fire marshal?
Marshal. Yeah, John France.
Yep.
Okay, good.
We'll add that to the plan.
Thank you.
Before a motion is made, is there anyone online that needs to make comments?
Just another question. Any signage for private property, I think makes a lot of sense because we don't want people parking there and accessing for fishing. So I'm just wondering if that should be a condition of the waiver or somehow spelled out.
I was gonna add that into the blurb. So yeah, I'm aligned on that. And agree. Couldn't agree more.
All right.
Any more? Okay. Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve the waiver for Saldo 31236 C3B in relation to having a slope greater than 10%, provided that with the conditions that appropriate signage is added per what's discussed here in terms of no turnaround, private driveway, etc.
I'll second that.
Are there any questions about the motion? Anyone online? You want to do a roll call? Oh,
Yeah.
those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None opposed. Waiver is approved. Great. And guess we have one more, right? All right. Does anyone want to make a motion? I believe there's 9 conditions for the May 10th memo.
Yeah, I'll make a motion for conditional final approval stipulation that they agree to the community development department recommendations 1 through 9, plus the additional comment on signage developed here tonight.
I'll second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Unopposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Good luck. Good luck.
All right, agenda item number 5, transportation infrastructure update.
Yeah, I got something a little. I'll make it quick. All right. So just so you know, PennDOT is modifying the funding for the 309 Tillman interchange. I guess they have a demo budgeted for 400,000. I think bids came in 660, if I'm not mistaken, around there. So they are modifying their funding now. Not promising for the rest of the project. They will be funded, but it's going to cost a lot more. So just a heads up on that. And secondly, 2024 tip is out. Public comment started yesterday, 5:15. I think you have a month for comment. So we'll try and send that around, but pretty similar projects to the last time we went through it. So that's all I got.
Thank you. There's no one in person. Is there anyone online? Courtesy of the floor.
Nope.
And just to reiterate for those who weren't here last week, the June Planning Commission meeting will feature Ridge Farm 1C and Parkland School District New Operations Center Phase 3. That's what we have for June.
We also will have, probably under courtesy of the floor, we'll have to figure out where to insert it. But we will be considering an application from Mr. Greg Adams to retire.
I will make no such motion.
Yeah, we will consider the application for retirement.
I'll make a motion to deny.
No.
Second.
I'm sorry, you can't act on that. That was not advertised for this meeting.
It says any or other business that may become before the board. Just saying.
All right. Agenda item number 7, adjournment.
I just wanted to say that I'm working on conditions that will be read into the record. So we will have that to look forward to.
A long list.
Yeah.
And we're going to make that the longest meeting he has ever attended. And we've gone almost close to midnight sometimes in the past.
Just say that no one scares me here, okay? do your worst.
You know, Jeff Reese at the LVPC tried retiring 2.5 years ago, so he's still there. So.
All right. I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second, third.
All in favor, aye.
Aye.
All right. Meeting adjourned.